Today, I'm going to talk about time to reveal who you really are. And this particular video was inspired by a group coaching session that I had this week with clients around the notion of finding and revealing your true self so that you really move into higher confidence and more impact and really better relationships, showing up with more of yourself authentically. And here's the problem. We are brought into this world and we're these beautiful children who have incredible magic and joy that we naturally come into this world with. Just like our fingerprints, we have this unique essence that is part of who we are. And you can see it if you look at these old childhood photos of yourself. You see it in your kids. My youngest child, when she was, oh my God, just like 3 to 5 years old, she was just like pure light and joy. She would dance around, and it was as if she were creating a musical of her life. She just naturally sang and invented songs and lyrics and twirled and fell down and got up again, and it was just magical. We all have this essence, and then life challenges, people start to create friction, and we adjust and we protect ourselves and we put up barriers and we start to forget who we really were. And as we were talking in our group session earlier this week, one client remembered that when she was in 5th grade, she got her first teacher who seemed to pop her bubble. She belittled her, she didn't like her, and she let her know all the things that were wrong with her. And up until then, this client had felt happy and secure and confident in herself. And then the seed of doubt started to be planted, and it grew. And she's grown up to be a much more worrisome adult, really worried about details and how she, really makes sure that she's on top of her game. I had another client who is really a giver, a pleaser, and she did this of her heart. And at one point, and as she was growing up, she started to realize that people were not reciprocating at all, really. They were starting to take advantage of her, and she started to really feel disappointment and started to pull back on who she was and not give with such ebullience and such generosity as she did before. And what's sad is she started to expect disappointment and resentment in the people in her life, and what we expect in all cases is really what we get. Have any of you shopped for a car, and maybe you're looking for a red car, and all of a sudden all you see are red cars or a certain make, right? We start to see what we're looking for, and the problem is when we start to carry these things around and we look for them and we see more of it, it just accumulates, and it does so really at an unconscious level. We don't even realize it because this is baggage that we've been building up since childhood, and we did what we needed to do then, which was to protect ourselves, but that may not be serving us now. And yet we're carrying it around, and we might be carrying around these stories, I'm not good enough, I'm not adequate, or people will disappoint me, and they just can't change. That's who they are. And it grows. And so what we end up doing is then protecting ourselves, hiding parts of ourselves, and maybe even finding that we're succeeding by doing that, by playing it safe, and by just being who we're expected to be. One of my clients, she now runs her own successful consulting firm, but when she was in corporate America, she learned to tamp down on who she was, to tamp down on that fire, and she got promoted for it. So she's learned behaviors that haven't made her happier necessarily. They've created more stress, but they've allowed her to succeed. And so we really talked about, well, how do we move forward in ways that are more a choice, that are allowing ourselves to reveal more of our authentic self so we can be the bigger, better versions of ourselves that we were meant to be and that we want to be, and really move forward with more confidence and skill and less stress as we interact with others, right? Because there is going to be this, we're not operating in a vacuum. How do we do this in a way that allows us to shine and not feel like we're going to be tamped down on or not accepted? So what do? I have this mnemonic that I will share with you, and it's around the word leap. And the first part of leap is looking. So we need to first look for who we were. And that really comes down to going and finding a childhood picture of yourself. I found one of myself when I was probably 10 years old, and I was outside like I am now, and I was feeling the sun on my face and feeling connected and completely at peace. And I've started to realize that that connectivity to others into this universe is part of my essence and part of what gets me excited to show up. And so go look for that. Look for ideally a picture of yourself before you were 13, before life started to get in the way and you started protecting yourself, and really look for that essence. One of my clients saw happiness and joy, and now she says she's grown up to really, she's happy, but she has a lot of worry, and she wanted to bring more of this joy into her life. My other client really saw this hug. She was completely connected and giving of herself in this abundant way, and she wanted to bring more of that into her life. So look for that. That's the first step. And then the second step, the E in LEAP, is empathize. So this is about tapping into the love you have for yourself unconditionally. And this is harder than it sounds. We often judge ourselves so much more harshly than we would anybody else. Just think about if you're a parent having a child, and do you love your child because they have great grades, or because they got into the right school or got the right job? No, right? You love your child because of who that person is and what they came to this world and just who they are, just being there. And what if you can give that empathetic, unconditional love to yourself? Really look at that. And, it was interesting for me when I looked at a picture of my daughter when she was young, and it really kind of sunk home for me how much I love that being no matter what happens. And she looks a lot like I did at that age too. And I sort of just, took all that in, that yes, I have high expectations of myself. And yes, um, I often judge myself for not necessarily achieving to the level that I want to, because I am this hyperachiever that I'm working on. But I'm learning to love the journey and every part of myself as I'm growing and learning and putting myself out there. So really work on that, because when you do, your energy, it soars. It lifts. Negative energy brings us down. Positive energy lifts us up. And empathizing and loving is just positive energy. The third thing is affirmation. So create an affirmation of who you want to be. I am connected to others in an abundant way. I am joyful happiness. Whatever it might be for you, when you look at that picture of who you were, when you discover some of that true essence of yourself, what is that affirmation? And say it, write it down, whatever works for you, but really believe it. And sometimes we have to say things a while before they really do sink in, and we can believe that that's part of who we are and who we want to be. We can always choose to discover what we were and might have lost, as well as what we want to cultivate that we don't have. But put that affirmation down. That's really key. And then the last thing, the fourth thing, is P, and that is for play. So outcomes change. We change when we do things differently. So let's play with what we're going to do differently. And how do you bring this work um, of bringing your essence more into your career and into your personal life, and doing it in a way that feels trusted? So for one of my clients, for example, she's now a consultant, and she feels like she has to bring just a certain persona forward in her work. And I challenged her and asked her, I know you have longstanding clients that you have deep relationships with. You've been doing this for over 2 decades. How can you bring more of yourself, that connected self, that abundant self, forward in a trusted relationship? And maybe doing one thing this week that will help you do that, and really lean into more of who you want to be going forward. So I invite you to do that and to play. So leap, have fun, and feel this energy that you had as a child, and is still there. It's about really discovering that true self that's always been there and just gets covered up in armor and masks that we feel we need to wear. And we always have the option to kind of explore and say, what do I want now?